Cable Bahamas has always been considered the innovator.
People can have confidence in Cable Bahamas as a mobile operator because of our past history. We've proven to the Bahamian community that we are in fact able to manage additional services as a telecommunications company.
Customers expect the best from Cable Bahamas.
The technology that we bring is revolutionary technology because we know that the Bahamian public, they deserve it, and Cable Bahamas is here to bring it to them.
We are ready. Turn us on.
The Deputy Prime Minister says no government MP has an interest in Baha Mar that could be considered a conflict. This as the Labour Minister accuses the FNM's former deputy leader of rank hypocrisy. The murder count climbs after a man is stabbed on Blue Hill Road. Plus, the Prime Minister shows off his dance moves during Fox Hill Day celebrations. We've got those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Dana Smith, and NB12 starts right now. Topping news tonight, Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis says as far as he is aware, no Progressive Liberal Party MP has an interest in Baha Mar that could be considered a conflict. His comments come one day after the Attorney General said her husband has had a store lease with Baha Mar for 2 years and dismissed opposition claims that this is a conflict. Kyle Joaquin reports.
Both Labour Minister Shane Gibson and Foreign Affairs and Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell received some sort of flack for the way they spoke to Baha Mar CEO Socrates Merlian. But today, Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis says while he doesn't give the pair wrong for the way they spoke to him, he would have addressed it a bit differently. Mitchell warned Merlian that his permanent residency could be revoked, while Gibson recommended future investors undergo a psychiatric evaluation. But to address Baha Mar CEO's criticism of the government, Davis said he would have put it in another language. Latin, to be precise.
Bella, nec, provocandum, nec temendium.
What does that mean, please? Translation.
I provoke no fight, but I fear none.
Davis says he agrees that no one should disrespect the office of the Prime Minister, no matter who he or she is. An agreement has still not been reached in the Baha Mar matter, but the winding up petition is set to continue next week. A route Merlian does not want to travel. However, Davis says the government is only playing his game.
That it was the developer who started the court proceedings. He started the court proceedings, and if it is the court to which he seeks to resolve and to achieve that goal, right? We have engaged in those proceedings.
Just moments before Davis defended Mitchell and Gibson, Fox Hill MP Fred Mitchell, while introducing the Prime Minister at a Fox Hill Day service, once again explained that he won't sit by and allow anyone to disrespect the office of the Prime Minister.
And I want to say that the Prime Minister is the holder of the most important executive office in this country. In that, he is the defender of all the power and majesty that is reposed in the Bahamian state. No one should disrespect it. You will notice that when the Prime Minister enters the room, we all stand. There is only one office for which that honor is afforded, and that is, as a matter of protocol, to the Governor General. When he comes to the podium, I will ask you to stand. We do that as a sign of esteem and respect for the office of the Prime Minister.
In agreeing with Mitchell, Christie said he wouldn't really have a problem with the statements if they were geared towards him as a person, but he said they become worthy of a response when the title of Prime Minister is attacked.
And he is right in that regard. And when he speaks about the respect for the office of Prime Minister, sometimes we forget it is not the individual we're talking about. We're talking about the office that person holds. And that person could be the pastor of the church. It's the office the pastor has that will be passed on to eternity, where other individuals will come in and hold that office, and for the good order of our country, whether it's in the church, whether it's the principal in the school, whether it's the Prime Minister, respect, respect, respect.
As for questions about PLP MP's interest in Baha Mar, Davis says he's not aware of any. Yesterday, Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson rejected the opposition leader's call for her resignation after she admitted that her husband has had a store lease for Baha Mar for about 2 years. The Deputy Prime Minister would not go any further, saying he's not familiar with Ministers' claim. As for Baha Mar talks, Cabinet, we understand, was briefed on the latest this evening. Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Labor Minister Shane Gibson has accused Long Island MP Loretta Butler Turner of rank hypocrisy after she called for his resignation over his recent assertion that it may be a good idea to carry out psychological evaluations on future investors. Gibson charged that Butler Turner does not have the track record to chastise him or anyone else in government. Vonique Toot reports.
One day after Loretta Butler Turner called on Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell and Labor Minister Shane Gibson to either retract comments they made about Baha Mar CEO or resign, Gibson fired back and accused Butler Turner of rank hypocrisy. He questioned why the Long Island MP didn't take that stance back in 2011 when then Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham publicly slammed Robin Hood owner Sandy Schaefer.
And I guess the only thing worse than hypocrisy is rank hypocrisy. And so the last person in the world I expect to be a compass, a moral compass to guide me is Loretta Butler Turner, particularly after her incident in Parliament, when she physically abused the Member of Parliament before Charlotte. You think she could tell me what to do? You think she could be a moral gauge, Loretta Butler Turner, who in the most sacred place outside of the halls of a church in this country, she slapped the Member of Parliament. Now she want to advise me on what to do?
Butler Turner slapped Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins in the House of Assembly back in August 2013. She said she was provoked. On Sunday, Butler Turner called on Prime Minister Perry Christie to either make Gibson and Fred Mitchell retract certain comments made about Baha Mar CEO Sarkis's Merlion or ask them to resign. However, she said Christie was too weak to rein in his members. However, Gibson asked why the Long Island MP didn't speak up when former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham publicly criticized a foreign investor.
She sat there while Ingraham attacked Schaefer. Why, if she really believed that you shouldn't be speaking out against permanent residents, if you thought that they offended your policy or some position that the government would have taken, why didn't she tell Mr. Ingraham at the time, Mr. Ingraham, I don't believe in what you're doing, and because of that, I'm going to resign? No, she sat around the table, giggled and laughed, and now she has the nerve to tell me that I shouldn't speak out against a permanent resident if he offends our policy. Well, I stand by what I say.
In 2011, Ingraham said Schaefer is not a good person for the Bahamas after Schaefer criticized the Ingraham administration over the negative impact roadworks were having on Robin Hood. Gibson said Butler Turner clearly thinks Bahamians have a short memory, adding he stands by his recent assertion that it would be a good idea to carry out psychological evaluations on future investors.
I'm Shane Gibson, a private individual, Shane Gibson, a member of Parliament, and Shane Gibson, a cabinet minister. I made it clear on the floor of Parliament that this is what we should perhaps begin to look at. I never said it was a government position.
Gibson's suggestion about psychological evaluations came as he was defending Mitchell, who urged his Merlion to cease and desist in his criticism of Prime Minister Christie and to be reminded that it is within the power of the Immigration Board to revoke his permanent residency status. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.
Amid calls for Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson's resignation, former PLP MP Philip Galanis defended her today, asserting because the Attorney General has no financial interest in any of the parties in the Baha Mar saga, there is no conflict of interest.
Because her husband has, or her children have, a financial interest in an entity that has leases with Baha Mar doesn't really rise, in my professional opinion, to a conflict of interest. I work with conflicts of interest all the time. I have to make determinations whether or not I have a conflict or whether someone of my staff have conflicts. And it doesn't really meet the test of a conflict of interest in this particular case.
Galanis said when it's understood what a conflict of interest really is, it's clear this matter doesn't fall under that category, explaining such a conflict would only arise if Maynard Gibson had a financial interest in Baha Mar, China Construction America, or the Export-Import Bank of China.
A conflict of interest essentially is when the person who is engaged in an activity has a financial interest in the business that they are engaged or discussing with the parties to the transaction. If, in fact, for example, the Attorney General had a financial interest in Baha Mar, in China Construction, or an Export-Import Bank, then you could say that there was a conflict of interest.
Galanis said there's not even the perception of a conflict of interest, calling that argument a long stretch.
You know, you've got to be very careful when you talk about a perception of a conflict of interest. The perception arises by virtue of the fact that her husband has leases in Baha Mar. And I could understand people making the stretch, but it is a stretch. It's a long stretch, in my opinion, to suggest that there is even a perception of a conflict of interest.
Maynard Gibson has led the government end of negotiations in the Baha Mar matter, prompting opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis to cry foul and call for her resignation. Galanis dismissed that as ludicrous.
Well, I think that's ludicrous. I mean, if she had a conflict of interest, then I'd say absolutely she should have resigned. But as I said before, this does not really rise to that level.
National examination results have been released. While students' performance improved in nearly half of the 27 BGCSE exam categories, students continue to average D's and E's respectively in English language and mathematics. Simone Davis reports.
Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald noted that student performance increased in 12 of the 27 BGCSE exams and decreased in others. 6,521 candidates were registered at the BGCSE level, which was a decrease from 6,789 registered in 2014. Fitzgerald said grades awarded at the A to C level increased to 50.49% from 47.92%. There was also a slight decrease in students who received D's in at least 5 subjects.
In 2015, a total of 1,534 candidates obtained a minimum grade of D in at least 5 subjects. This represents 0.071% decrease from 2014, which had a total of 1,545 candidates. There were also 1,626 candidates in 2013 and 1,594 in 2012.
When asked about the persisting problem of dismal national exam results, Fitzgerald suggested that greater attention must be placed on after-school programs that prepare students to sit these exams. He also said although improvement has been made in certain areas, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to catch those students who continue to fall through the cracks and those still averaging at the D level.
We at the Ministry of Education, Science, and Technology are more committed than ever to doing the work that is necessary to equip our students with the tools and basic education that they need for them to go out and make a positive contribution to our country and the world at large.
As for BJC exams, Fitzgerald said approximately 10,570 candidates from 118 centers were registered to sit BJC exams, and literature was reintroduced at the BJC level after 23 years. He said the number of students who sat the BJC exams this year represents a 17.61 increase over last year, when only 8,987 students were registered. He also noted that the total number of awards from A to D increased to 25,250, up from 23,699 in 2014.
The total number of grades awarded at A to D increased as well. This year we had the largest number of candidates awarded in the A to D when compared to the last 5 to 6 years. This year, 25,250 grades were awarded in the A to D category. In 2014, 23,699 grades were awarded at the A to D category. This represents a 1,551 increase in grades awarded at the A to D level.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.
When MB12 returns, Fox Hill MP Fred Mitchell once again leads parliamentarians in a redemption song, and the Prime Minister shows off his dance moves. Stay with us.